But we'll start with Bill Belitskus. Bill is a board president of the Allegheny Defense Project in Pennsylvania and lives on land adjacent to the Allegheny National Forest. A Vietnam vet, Bill grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Pennsylvania and earned degrees in psychology and education. For the past 15 years, he has worked on monitoring forest fragmentation, water degradation, air pollution, and the loss of recreational opportunities in the Allegheny National Forest caused by oil and gas drilling. Tonight we'll be hearing Bill talk about the dangers of water withdrawal from rivers and streams and the riparian rights of landowners to protect waterways. So please welcome Bill Belitskus.
Just one disclaimer. I don't receive any money, or I'm not paid by any organization to present my views tonight, so you need to know that up front, and you should ask that of any other speaker from the industry or from Penn State or any other organization, who's paying them. You need to know that. If you listen to the gas industry, and tonight we're talking about unconventional hydrocarbon shale gas extraction using hydraulic fracturing. We're not talking about drilling into a pocket of natural gas, okay, that we're familiar with conventionally. If you listen to the gas industry, the only problem really for them are citizens. And in 2010, we found out that the Pennsylvania Department of Homeland Security was actually surveillancing and monitoring citizens who were opposed to hydraulic fracturing. Go ahead, Mary. Last weekend, Audrey McClendon from Chesapeake declared that citizens basically opposed to hydraulic fracturing were extremists, and they need to be watched carefully. They look like extremists, right? So the question for me is, how did this industry even get into the Northeast, coming from the south, southeast, and Louisiana and Colorado out west, and actually reach the point where they are today? And there are a lot of assumptions that they run under. World demand for oil is increasing, so this is going to make us energy independent, but no data on that, how that's going to happen. Basically, we're going to keep using oil, and we're going to keep using coal. If you know of any coal company or coal state that's actually not going to produce coal and sell it, let me know. In fact, it'll be exported along with the shale gas. It's a clean, green, fossil fuel, bridge fuel to renewable energy, and they never explain how we're going to get there if we don't actually develop renewable sources like wind and solar. And it's actually going to reduce climate change, and yet when you take the life cycle of unconventional hydrocarbon shale gas extraction, the land clearing, the deforestation, the water that they need, the equipment that they run, the leakage of methane, when you add up all those, it's actually equivalent to what we're doing with coal right now, or maybe even a little dirtier. So the other thing is that the industry is now moving forward with liquefied natural gas export terminals in our country, and they're planning on exporting it. The industry's thing is natural gas is fungible. We're going to send it to wherever we get the most money. So how does that make us energy independent? And I think the other danger, that we should, if they actually carry out that plan and export gas the way they want to, they'll actually it'll become similar to oil traded on the world market, and volatile speculation will follow. So your gas prices, you're going to get cheap home energy to heat your house. I don't think that's going to happen. We know from Ian Urbana at the New York Times that it's been described as a Ponzi scheme. And I was discussing it with Kevin on the panel, and it's basically, if they can externalize all the damage, environmental damage, pollution, and costs onto you and the taxpayers, then they can make a lot of money doing that. That's what it comes down to. So we know that in Pennsylvania, that at one borough where they were running the water, the frack water, contaminated frack water through the borough's sewage treatment plant, that it was 275 times the radium that the EPA would consider safe. And way over on the drinking water level, 780 times. I'm having a little trouble seeing that far, so bear with me. Arkansas just had to ban deep injection wells for disposing of frack water because they were getting continuous earthquakes. And so what happened in Pennsylvania now is that the EPA has just recently permitted 2 deep injection wells in a small community called Columbus Township in right south of Clymer, New York, 400 feet across the New York border. And we know that those citizens were never even informed in New York. And actually at that meeting where they did that, the EPA approved it. You know, the gas industry rep said, just wait till New York's moratorium's over because we're ready for them. And this is Columbus Township, their response to the EPA issuing those permits for those 2 deep injection wells for contaminated frack fluid is basically to pass an ordinance banning the disposal of those kinds of things in their aquifers. So when you, Penn Future recently, a Pennsylvania organization actually sued a company for the emissions that they're emitting from their air pollution from their facilities. And what Penn Future is saying, and what everybody else knows, is that it's not just a well drilled in the ground, it's also the pipelines, the compressor stations, the gas processing plants, all the equipment that they run, all those things are one major source of air pollution. And nobody's dealt with that issue yet in this country. So if this picture of the gas, 15,000 miles of gas pipeline doesn't scare you, it does me. I live here, and we're talking about up in New York here. So basically, that pipeline system's being fast-tracked by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service so that they don't have to do the surveys on endangered species. But that actually shows you the plan, I think, for industrializing our regions. Well, there should be a picture there, but there's an old Appalachian folk saying where we come from, and never talk to anybody over your fence that has sawdust in their hair and oil on their boots, and I'll let you figure that out. Why that is. We have a long history of energy extraction by corporations in the Appalachian region, and this would have been a map of the Appalachian region, and it actually mimics this shale basin map. So we're right where we've always been in terms of resource extraction by corporations. And it's not just the Marcellus Shale. That's all they're talking about, but these are the ones that are being promoted down at Penn State by Dr. Engelder, who actually was promoting these. And then don't forget, we have the Trenton Black River deep gas formation that runs from the Finger Lakes down to Morgantown, West Virginia, 10 to 12,000 feet deep. So they have plans beyond the Marcellus. We know the Utica, but these are the other shale formations. Somewhere we lost all our pictures. Okay, so basically in Pennsylvania, we're looking at this as the single greatest environmental catastrophe to impact our land base since the clear cutting by the timber barons at the turn of the century and the strip mining companies. Anyways, that's just a typical example of a Marcellus site, and basically what they're saying is the industry started out that we only construct 5-acre sites, and then it went, and they're up to 7 to 10 acres, but when I go out into the field on the Allegheny National Forest or in State Forest, those sites are like 20 acres because they don't include the water impoundments, the frack pits, the well site, the access roads, the gas pipelines, the compressor plants, and the gas processing plants. When you start putting all those things together, you're looking at 20, 22-acre sites. We'll just keep moving. Okay, so Governor Corbett, he was basically bought by the gas industry, our newest governor. He received almost $1 million in political contributions, and so his response has been basically to not tax the industry. We don't even have a severance tax in Pennsylvania right now. we'll just keep going while you're working on a hookup. Okay. So if you, Governor Ridge is actually, or Governor Corbett is actually concerned that we don't want to affect the gas companies in Pennsylvania by overtaxing them. So I think it's important to follow the money. If you, Mr. Pagula, the CEO of East Resources, sold his Marcellus holdings to Shell, that foreign company, for $4.3 billion. And then he turned around and bought the Buffalo Sabres for almost $180-some million. And then he gave $88 million to Penn State for a hockey program. And then Penn State, our land-grant institution, actually cranks out studies that show that it's going to be an economic boom for our region. And those studies have since been discredited. And they actually used that study to influence our elected legislators. So the industry would like us not to be alarmed on the National Forest by the Marcellus industry, but I'm alarmed, okay? So they're flaring along there, and they actually had to worry. We call the Allegheny National Forest a land of many abuses, not uses like the Forest Service, because of all the things we're talking about. We've been doing aerial monitoring since 1994. So that we're actually monitoring the logging and the land clearing for oil and gas drilling. So right here is the National Scenic Byway on the Allegheny National Forest, and the Forest Service allowed the oil and gas industry to put in a gas development. Each one of those sites is a well and a connecting road. So you can begin to get an idea of how it's fragmenting the land base. So we have more oil and gas wells in the Allegheny than all the other 155 national forests combined. In the range of 12 to 15,000 wells, and we don't follow the National Environmental Policy Act. We're currently litigating in federal court against the oil and gas industry and the Forest Service for not following that and doing an environmental analysis prior to issuing permits. We wanted to give you an idea of typical road building for oil and gas development. And rock pits, you need stone, gravel for this, so you're going to alter your land base significantly to build all those roads and well pads. We have spills, we have waste materials discarded on the forest and the waterways here. That's drill fines just dumped in the waterways. You have permanent infrastructure on your public lands, tank batteries, generation facilities, brine pits, oil spills. Recreation significantly impacted on the Allegheny. They're not compatible, oil and gas drilling and recreation and tourism. This is the National Scenic Byway. You notice the Forest Service doesn't want you to camp on either side of the National Scenic Byway because it would detract from the scenic beauty, so they let an oil and gas company put a development along the National Scenic Byway. And our human heritage sites are being destroyed. One of the major destructions of causes of our human heritage sites are gas line excavation, land clearing and gas line excavation. It's just they're plowing through human heritage sites without any analysis. And our Department of Environmental Protection doesn't even require them to do an analysis. So if you think that a state park or a remote area might be safe, I don't believe that based on our experience. All of these areas are slated for gas drilling, oil and gas drilling on the Allegheny. Doesn't matter what their designation is, wilderness, scenic, doesn't matter. We're going to keep going. Just to give you an idea of what you should see, an unfragmented forest, land-based, watershed, and on the ground. And what we're seeing here, this is an oil and gas development on the Allegheny. Roads. This occurred between April and August. We know all these species are declining on the Allegheny from oil and gas drilling, from the fragmentation. And the Forest Service can't quite figure out what's causing the drop in nesting habitat and things like that, but the Allegheny Defense Project, they call it unknown reasons, but we have a really good idea what it is. That's a gas well site and a clear cut for the road and the pad. And we're only talking, I'm showing you shallow. We do have Marcellus already started on the Allegheny. So in 23, Calvin Coolidge signed a proclamation creating the Allegheny for watershed protection. We had already clear-cut it and sent all the mud down to Pittsburgh in the Allegheny at the turn of the century. And so basically we've got thousands of miles of road, and that's what you're going to have to understand that's going to happen to your watersheds and forested landscapes. And basically you can follow the mud in any rain event. You follow the mud down off the hillsides and into your road ditches or into your drainage areas and down into your streams. This is Salmon Creek, a high-quality trout stream. We actually litigated over that because of the sedimentation going into it. And this is the Allegheny Reservoir in the spring, and you can follow the mud down off the hillsides where the logging and the road building and the well pad construction was going. We're working with New York State on Allegheny State Park. This is Allegheny State Park up here, and this is the Allegheny National Forest, and you can see all the fragmentation that's occurring. We're actually doing boundary work. We're remarking the boundaries so that the oil and gas companies don't go into Allegheny State Park, where you don't currently allow oil and gas drilling and logging. We're working with Adirondack Mountain Club on that. So we're going to keep going. We've actually got pollution flowing into Allegheny State Park from streams where the development's occurring on the Allegheny National Forest. So there was a spill and a white substance that ended up in Iaeger Brook in the Allegheny State Park when the biologists were taking water samples. We're going to keep going. And so we found the excavator with the white milky substance all over the bucket, and it came out of a brine pit that they had overflowed and allowed to go into Iaeger Brook. So we didn't have any trouble tracking it down on the Allegheny National Forest side. And so even though it's 2011, we have leaking wellheads, we have no sediment controls, and these are the companies that are saying basically that they know what to do. They know how to do it right. It's still going on. This is U.S. Energy. They're actually taking water out of streams. That's in August. The water's not over the soles of my hiking boots, and they dammed up the brook, Iaeger Brook, and just started pumping water out. And that's their plan for millions of gallons of water, along with drilling water wells now for the hydrofracking. So the Allegheny National Forest said maybe people need to go somewhere else. Because there's no remote experience that's going to be left. And so our legislators, with their foresight, went ahead and leased our state forest lands, which we actually own the mineral rights on, to the oil and gas industry. So this is ShaleShock State Forest and a Marcellus site. Fortuna Energy Marcellus site in the Tioga State Forest. Look at the size of the water impoundments. Look at the millions of gallons. That site's over 20-some acres, 22 acres. This is Moshannon State Forest. They said they wouldn't need all the sites because they're bigger and they'll have fewer sites. But basically, here's Marcellus sites leapfrogging through the Moshannon State Forest. And that was an oak forest they cut down, 5 acres for that well pad in the Elk State Forest. And this is a typical, what we're used to, half-acre shallow well site that we're familiar with, and then Marcellus is basically drilling on steroids. We're going to keep moving. We're going to go, that's a Marcellus drill pad site, water impoundment, truck traffic. Remember, 1,000 trucks in, average, 1,000 trucks out. That's equipment hauling in for one Marcellus site. So this is an example of the fragmentation on the forest. We're going to keep going. And one of the myths is that we won't need to do that. But when you go out to Colorado and look at this development, this is a gas development. All it is well pads and connecting roads, same as you see on the Allegheny National Forest. Okay, and now they're down to 10-acre spacing on well pads, gas sites out in Colorado along this shot. And so, this gets us back to the industry. How do we know what we know about Marcellus drilling? And it's because the industry tells us, and everybody believes them. How did they get away with that? It's not a clean fossil fuel. It's dirty when you take the whole life cycle. And safe fracking's a fairy tale. Not true. The EPA study from 2004 that the industry always quotes, discredited. Industry manipulated the science, stacked the committee, and basically it wasn't even on the risks of hydraulic fracturing on drinking water, it was on coal bed methane. We done? Okay. Go ahead. So this is a recent, volatile organic compounds in the holding tanks at this Marcellus site in Avella, Washington County, in Avella, PA, just caught fire and exploded. They were just containing fracking fluids, production fluids there. And I think we'll just stop there. That's how we know our information.
Thank you, Bill. Oh. Yeah, it's really important to look at these pictures and to hear the experiences of people in Pennsylvania. I know when I've talked to various legislators and highlight these problems, the response I get from the New York politicians are, well, that's not going to happen here. That's Pennsylvania. It's going to be different here. Well, considering what the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, says, and considering the state of the DEC at this point, this is exactly what we would be facing.